The Jedi believed the Sith would return with fire and blades. Palpatine returned with patience. That was his genius. He understood that a civilization collapses not from pressure, but from the absence of structure. So he removed the structure piece by piece until the galaxy begged for someone to rebuild it. And when he stepped forward, it did not resist. It welcomed him.
Welcome, Master Sarboth. I'm sure you can appreciate our apprehension. The force-negating USR Mayor is merely to enable a level playing field during this briefing.
You may speak freely, Captain. The Emperor's ascent is a matter of order, and order in my new empire is a matter of my concern.
Quite. Then let us begin. Before the galaxy knew the Emperor, it knew a quiet boy from Naboo. A world of serene landscapes and political vanity. A place where ambition hides behind courtesy. Children reveal more than adults. Palpatine learned early that influence is not taken. It is invited. Naboo culture prizes elegance, restraint, and subtle maneuvering. He mastered all three before adulthood. Observe the structure of their society, beauty masking hierarchy, tradition masking control, a perfect environment for a mind that understood how to move unseen. The art of Naboo, pastoral landscapes, flowing lines, soft colors, all celebrating serenity and moral beauty. Their portraits show faces that wish to be seen as virtuous. Yet look closer at the Palpatine family estate records. Rigid symmetry, controlled repetition, cold precision beneath the elegance. The boy already understood what his culture refused to admit. Beauty is a tool, not a truth.
You read all that from paintings? How quaint. You sift through pigments and symmetry as though mortal craft could ever reveal truth. Intuition does not come from brushstrokes, Grand Admiral. It comes from the Force. Only the Force. Every insight, every revelation, every flicker of understanding worth having flows from it alone. Artists imitate what they cannot touch. You analyze what you cannot feel. And then you call it perception.
From the choices in the paintings, Master Sarboth. Cultures reveal their failures long before they reveal their strengths. The Republic's devotion to debate over decision made it vulnerable to anyone who understood that symmetry is simply clarity imposed upon chaos. You may trust intuition from the Force, but intention is laid bare in art. And intention is always predictable.
It is hard to imagine the Emperor as a child at all.
His early life is defined by one pattern. He learned to watch, to wait, to understand the weaknesses of those who believed themselves secure. His family was influential, complacent, blind to the child studying them. Palpatine discovered something essential long before he entered politics. People reveal more in their comforts than in their crises.
He must have been strong in the Force even then, strong enough to conceal his presence. The Jedi should have sensed him. We must have failed because we would assume power would look familiar. What power he must have had. What an apprentice he would make.
He is gone, and nothing remains.
He must have understood destiny even as a boy, not through teaching, but through instinct. The Force gravitates toward those who dare to claim it.
He understood opportunity. Destiny is merely the name the powerful give to their choices. Palpatine did not simply meet Darth Plagueis. He was studied long before the first conversation. Plagueis observed him on Naboo, tracked his political ambitions, and sensed a mind shaped for secrecy. When Plagueis finally approached him, Palpatine accepted without hesitation. He learned Sith philosophy in private chambers on Coruscant. He learned to hide his presence from the Jedi. He learned to channel anger without revealing it. Plagius taught him how to influence minds, how to bend institutions, and how to make the Republic believe it was guiding itself. Their partnership lasted years.
Plagius saw what the Jedi refused to acknowledge, a presence the Force itself was gathering around. The Jedi looked at him and saw a politician. Plagius looked and saw potential. The boy must have already been walking a path the Jedi were too blind to see.
He learned to wait and to choose the moment when a teacher becomes an obstacle. Palpatine entered Naboo politics with deliberate subtlety. He presented himself as a harmless bureaucrat, a polite administrator with no ambition beyond service. In truth, he was studying the internal machinery of Naboo governance. He learned how the advisory council stalled, how personal relationships shaped policy, and how tradition concealed weakness. He built alliances quietly, choosing supporters who believed they were guiding him. Every committee he joined became a lesson in how institutions fail.
He moved unseen because those around him lacked strength. The Force was already shaping his ascent. The Jedi should have sensed a presence rising, but they were blind to anything that did not fit their narrow expectations. Power grows where guardians hesitate. Even with my strength, I did not sense him.
When Palpatine became senator, he did not arrive as a disruptor. He arrived as a reformer. Calm, cooperative, reasonable. He manipulated committees by appearing helpful. He influenced votes by offering stability. He studied the Republic's structural decay from within the Senate itself. He learned how corruption spread, how crises were mishandled, and how fear shaped political decisions. He perfected the art of appearing reasonable while quietly steering outcomes. Senate politics is merely warfare with slower weapons. He mapped the factions like terrain, identifying which alliances were brittle, which senators craved relevance, which committees were choke points. Information asymmetry became his artillery. He never charged. He simply let the enemy's own momentum carry them into the kill zone.
I served under enough politicians to know how rare that is. Most of them cannot steer anything, other than their own greed and influence.
The Senate never understood what sat among them. They saw a diplomat. The Force saw a storm forming. He must have listened to their doubts, their fears, their failures, and the Force showed him how to rule them long before they realized they were being ruled. That is the destiny of those strong in the Force, to command those who cannot see.
He did not command them. He allowed them to follow him willingly. The Naboo crisis was not an accident. Palpatine orchestrated the Trade Federation blockade through layers of intermediaries and deniable channels. He used the Federation's fear of taxation to push them into confrontation they believed served their interests. In reality, it served his. The blockade created a manufactured emergency. It allowed Palpatine to appear as a victim of aggression. It positioned him as a voice of calm and reform, and it exposed the Republic's inability to respond to a crisis on one of its most peaceful worlds.
So he engineered the threat, then stepped forward as the solution.
Precisely. He understood that the Senate would fracture under pressure. He understood that sympathy would elevate him. And he understood that Naboo's suffering would make him appear trustworthy. Every speech he gave during the crisis was calculated to present him as a champion of stability. The galaxy believed he was protecting Naboo. He was protecting his ascent.
Thrawn, keep your pets away from me.
Rook, stand down. Beyond the politics, consider the logistics. He turned the Trade Federation's greed, the banking clan's loans, and the Republic's own taxation apparatus into weapons. The clone army later became the ultimate example, an entire military force financed and grown using the enemy's resources. Logistics is the hidden battlefield. Palpatine mastered it, while the Senate debated ethics. Palpatine won the chancellorship through a combination of sympathy and fear. The Naboo crisis made him appear as a victim of aggression. The Senate saw him as a calm voice in a moment of chaos. He used the Trade Federation blockade to expose the Republic's paralysis. Delegates believed he could restore stability. Once elected, he immediately began consolidating emergency powers. Each new crisis justified another expansion of authority. He weakened the Senate by allowing it to drown in procedure while he acted decisively. The Republic believed it was granting temporary powers. Palpatine knew they would never be returned.
The Senate handed him control because they were afraid of losing control themselves.
Fear is the most efficient political currency. Palpatine spent it with precision.
The Jedi supported him because they were weak, Grand Admiral. They sensed no danger because they no longer understood the Force. It does not scream, it reveals. And they were blind to anything it revealed that did not flatter their narrow vision. A man strong in the Force should never rise unchallenged. But they lacked the will to challenge him. That was their failure, not ignorance, cowardice.
He became what they needed, and what they feared. The Clone Wars were Palpatine's masterpiece. He created both armies. The Republic's clone legions and the separatist droid forces were designed to oppose each other while serving the same master. He controlled both sides of the conflict. Every battle strengthened his authority. Every loss justified new powers. The war allowed him to reshape the Republic into a military state. It allowed him to place the Jedi in command positions that eroded their political neutrality. And it allowed him to portray himself as the only figure capable of guiding the galaxy through chaos.
So the entire war was engineered. Every victory, every defeat, all of it serving one purpose.
To justify total authority. The Senate surrendered its power willingly. The Jedi lost theirs through participation. Palpatine used the war to dismantle their influence. He made them appear as soldiers instead of guardians. When the time came to remove them, the galaxy did not resist.
The Jedi were never prepared for war. They followed the Force without understanding it. He must have seen their hesitation, their doubt, their fear, and used it. Conflict reveals the weak.
He did not bend them. He positioned them. And once positioned, they fell exactly where he intended. The Jedi purge was the final phase of Palpatine's design. He manipulated Anakin Skywalker with precision. He offered him power, certainty, and the illusion of control. He fed his fear of loss and his distrust of the Council. By the time Anakin fell, the Jedi had already positioned themselves exactly where Palpatine needed them. Order 66 was not a spontaneous command. It was a contingency built into the clone army years earlier. The moment the order was given, the Jedi were eliminated as a military force. The galaxy did not rise to defend them. It had already accepted their fall.
Hard to believe an entire order could be destroyed in a single moment.
The Jedi believed the Sith would return with fire and blades. Palpatine returned with patience. That was his genius. He understood that a civilization collapses not from pressure, but from the absence of structure. So he removed the structure piece by piece until the galaxy begged for someone to rebuild it. And when he stepped forward, it did not resist. It welcomed him.
The Jedi were blind. They sensed darkness but could not see it. They felt danger but could not act. He must have seen their fear and shaped it. Anakin was never theirs to guide. The stronger will always claims the weaker. The purge was not a betrayal. It was a correction.
The transformation from Republic to Empire was not a sudden proclamation. It was the conclusion of a long sequence. Palpatine waited until the Senate was exhausted, the Jedi were gone, and the galaxy was desperate for stability. When he declared the Galactic Empire, he presented it as the logical answer to chaos. He centralized power in the office of the Emperor. He rewrote law to remove obstacles. He rewrote history to justify his rise. And he rewrote identity by convincing citizens that order was more valuable than freedom. The Senate applauded. The galaxy accepted. The transition was almost bloodless. He prepared them to desire it after the previous chaos.
Hard to imagine an entire government surrendering itself so willingly.
They believed they were choosing safety. Palpatine ensured that every alternative looked like collapse. He made the Empire appear inevitable, and inevitability is the most persuasive form of authority.
The Jedi were gone. Their absence created a void. The Force itself felt unbalanced. He must have filled that void with his will. He shaped the galaxy according to strength. No councils, no debates, no hesitation. The Republic was weak because it feared decisive action. The Empire was strong because it embraced it. That is how destiny is claimed.
Destiny did not claim the galaxy. Palpatine did, and he did so by teaching the people to welcome the chains he offered. Palpatine rose because the Republic believed itself eternal. That belief is the most fragile structure a government can possess. A culture that celebrates discussion will always underestimate one who understands action.
He exploited their complacency, sir.
Not exploited, Captain. He studied it, as one studies a piece of art, noting the cracks in the paint, the strain in the canvas. The Republic had been decaying for decades. Palpatine merely chose the moment when the rot was loud enough to be mistaken for crisis.
The Jedi sensed the darkness. They acted, but without clarity.
They acted precisely as Palpatine expected them to. That was his brilliance. The Clone Wars were not a tragedy. They were a design. A conflict calibrated to reveal every weakness of the Republic's institutions and every flaw in the Jedi's self-image.
Flaw, sir. The Jedi were the Republic's defenders. Look at how many problems one Jedi causes us.
Defenders, yes, but defenders who believed their own myth. They saw themselves as guardians of peace. Palpatine understood they could be maneuvered into becoming instruments of war. Once the Jedi accepted the role of generals, they ceased to be what the galaxy needed them to be, and became exactly what Palpatine needed them to be. They expected the Sith to return as warriors. Palpatine returned as a politician. The Jedi's art, their temples, their holocrons, all speak of balance, contemplation, serenity. But serenity is not a strategy, and balance is not a defense against one who understands how to tilt the scale.
So the Jedi were doomed from the start.
The declaration was merely the unveiling. The true victory occurred long before. Palpatine understood that a civilization collapses not when pressure is applied, but when structure is absent. He offered structure. The Republic offered procedure. He offered certainty. The Jedi offered philosophy. He offered movement. The Senate offered hesitation. The galaxy did not choose tyranny, Captain. It chose momentum. The centralization and military build-up had value. The galaxy needed strength for what lies in the unknown regions, threats far greater than any internal squabble. In that sense, Palpatine prepared the ground, however crudely.
You speak as if the Emperor was merely useful. But power is never useful. It is inevitable. Those who grasp it reshape the galaxy. Those who hesitate are reshaped by it.
He was. Yet the empire he built carried structural flaws he refused to acknowledge. Xenophobia that squandered talent. Over-centralization around a single will rather than a merit-based hierarchy. Resources diverted into superweapons when adaptable fleets would have served better. Fear produces obedience, but it does not produce resilience. When he fell, the machine fractured because it had been engineered to serve one mind, not to endure beyond it. He conditioned the galaxy to accept chains. The question is whether any of those chains can be repurposed without repeating his mistakes.
You speak of strategy, Thrawn, But strategy is a child's toy. The Emperor rose because the Force hungered for him. I felt it even then, a great devouring presence, swallowing doubt, swallowing weakness, swallowing the very light the Jedi clung to. He was the storm the galaxy deserved, and when he fell, the void he left behind did not close. It waits. It waits for the next will strong enough to fill it. Perhaps it waits for me.
The void you speak of is not a throne to be claimed. It is a warning. The Emperor's fall shattered half the galaxy. Whatever the Force hungers for, it is not another ruler who believes himself its mouthpiece.
Thus ends this briefing. Master Sabaoth, you may return to Mount Tantis.
And we, sir, can discuss the deeper strategic and tactical ramifications of his rise to power at a later date.